This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Khadija Tia Muhammad works with Armored Trucks in Detroit, and she's been trying to publish her book for 20 years. She was NAACP president in Charleston, West Virginia in the early 90s, and that's where her book, Life, Liberty, and Injustice, Education, Bullying, and Hate Crimes begins.
And it was dealing with pretty much one of the first cases of bullying and hate crimes that dealt with a young man moved there from Detroit. His mother was trying to give him a better education. And they were kind of attacking him, bullying him and treating him in a very sour way, which he could have taken it and have turned it into a negative. They want to kill him. It was one of those situations where everybody wanted everything to be perfect. No one wants to address anything.
So it's 1994, a time when you would think we'd be far beyond a kid being threatened with his life because he's black, living in West Virginia, and wants to go to school.
Yeah, and he was biracial. His mother was white, his dad was black, but his mother moved back to West Virginia because that's where she was from. She wanted to be around her family members and give him a life where he wasn't worried about city crime. At the time, Detroit was going through a little problems with young people. It's a true story about what I had to go through to get his rights where he could continue his education. No one wanted to believe these young boys that had everything, their parents gave them everything, was threatening to kill him and torture him. He was a very handsome young man, wanted to play basketball. The girls was attracted to him, but he was very meek and mild. And so he wasn't used to the racial harassment. And so the mother just couldn't take it. You know, she saw her son suffer. Nobody would listen. The parents, the principal wouldn't listen. And I had to call the FBI, and I had to go before the superintendent. No, they were joking, and they didn't want to take that serious. So that's when I realized this boy could snap and go to school, and it could be a bigger problem, or they could snap and kill him. Somebody was going to get hurt.
So did he continue going to school?
His mother took him out of school, homeschooled him for a minute, and they accepted him at another county, and he went to that school, and he continued his education, but he lost his dream. He wanted to go to college and get a scholarship and try to do better for his mother. And you know, he's just a young kid. They're living in a trailer. His mother's doing the best she could do. And see, this is what I was trying to explain in my book. It's called Life, Liberty, and Justice. It is about people that either they lose their life through someone kills them, or they just lose the dream of their family growing, and because that person died. That was the incubator for the whole family. He did graduate. There's somebody out here that has a dream to be something, and they're being bullied or detoured, or somebody's thinking it was not the color of their skin, it's the race, their gender. There's so many things that people have a hang up on. Right. And we just need to let people be and try to nurture ourselves where we have the problem. Maybe somewhere in the midst of, you may know someone that's going through this. This is what you need to tell them. This is what you need to help them do. This is how they can get through it.
Well, Khadija, your book has an invaluable message, and you know, it just might be the perfect time for it. Thank you. Linda Warner is a retired high school English teacher living in Florida. When her brother Bill moved nearby, he shared his experiences about life on a PT boat in the Pacific during World War II, and Linda started writing. Bill is 93 now, and Linda has published his story entitled World War II, One Little Boat. What a great gift you've given him, Linda.
It's been good for him more than anything because, you know, those people in World War II and in all of our conflicts have sacrificed so much that goes unappreciated. And this made him see, as we wrote it all down, hey, you really deserve to be honored. And that's happened to him because of the book. He was on a PT boat probably longer than anybody else ever was on one because most people got to go home or they got to go back to the States for a little while. He does not understand to this day why that didn't happen for him. He was on a PT boat that everybody wanted to be on because they seemed to really work well together. He called them a well-oiled machine. Well, they were not allowed to leave by themselves. Only could they go if there were three of them, three boats. But one day, a group of them on his boat, which would consist mainly of around 12 men, they decided we're just going to go off by ourselves, whether anybody likes it or not. And so they did. And I relate what happened in the book, and it wasn't a great experience, but that was their R&R for 2 years.
What surprised you the most about his...
How much he couldn't remember, how memories would pop up. As we were writing the book, I would write things down, and he would look at it, and he would read it, and he'd say, I just don't know if that's the way it was. And then another memory would pop up. His issue for 70 years has been PTSD, which I came to understand through this. He still suffers from PTSD. And so we talked a great deal about that. You know, back at that time, they didn't understand PTSD. And that's why many vets today are just kind of rejected and have lost their touch with reality. And after talking with him and hearing about the things that happened, I get it. So the book is directed not just to history buffs, but it's about PTSD and how do you handle it today? What should you do for it? Because Bill has come to grips somewhat with it, but it will plague him his whole life. The only thing that saved him would be work. He went into construction with his father, and he worked 7 days a week, 12 to 15 hours a day, went home exhausted. It was his escape. And he was very, very strong physically. So he could work, but he never got married. And he would say to me, Linda, I just couldn't subject a woman to waking up in the night with my nightmares.
And he never went for help. He never tried to deal with it.
Not until about 5 years ago.
Better late than never, Linda. And you know what the best part is? Bill is well enough to do book signings near his homes in New York and Florida, and he's helping others. Jeffrey C. Hobson is a transportation specialist in Northwest Indiana. He interpreted the U.S. Constitution as part of a dissertation in college back in the 80s. He's wanted to write a book ever since. Then a miracle happened, and now he has published his first book. It's entitled, Is There a Pet Heaven? The Question Answered. Tell me about this miracle.
A few years back, I had a routine medical procedure. I had plaque removed out of my arteries. During this normal procedure, the dye they use to paint the plaque so the cardiologist can see the plaque under the scope and remove it out of your arteries blew up in my body to the point where it cut off my circulation. And I could not walk. My circulatory system was completely shut down. The pain in my legs was excruciating. And there was a haunting to write this book. And, of course, the title of the book, Is There a Pet Heaven? The Question Answered. I went ahead and finished that book, and I submitted it to Page Publishing. On a date, I received notification that they were going to publish this book. The pain in my legs subsided, and I started walking. And that's why I am firmly convinced that this book is the right book for the right time with the right answer. There's a lot of information out there on this subject. What happens to your beloved family member, that animal, when they pass away? Nobody, until now, really outlines exactly, step by step, exactly what's going to happen with that animal. It's a biblically based book, and it specifically answers exactly how this is going to unfold.
How do you know?
First, I have the miracle that happened when I wrote the book. Number two, it's based on the Bible. I've researched the Bible from the ancient Septuagint all the way forward from Genesis to Revelation to put these truths into the book. Third is I have handed this book out to people, and at the end of the day, they all come back and they tell me the same thing. That's got to be the answer. And when they read the book, a new experience took place with them in a relationship with their pet. There is an eternal life for these animals, and I've got it biblically outlined. It's there with all kinds of supporting evidences. And in the end, there is a very special place for them, and you're going to be overwhelmed at how this is all going to unfold in the very end for the animals. Now, a lot of people are probably going to wait until after their animal passes to want to purchase a book. I'd encourage them to get it before, for the simple reason that if they get this book and they read it, that relationship with that animal is just going to be catapulted into a whole different dimension. Right now, I have a website, pet-heaven.net.
All right.
There's a video there. And even if people don't want to buy the book, I encourage them to go to the website and watch the video. That they will be blessed if they do that.
All right, Jeffrey, thank you. Kay Ash was an exotic dancer, and she now runs an entertainment agency in Miami. She expresses herself through writing and started a blog when she found herself suffering character assassination and abuse from a group of people she thought she knew. She tells her side of the story in her book entitled Escaping Possession. I got to ask you, what made you go into exotic dancing?
Just for money. Like, I had wanted to go to school, and I thought that I could pay for it, but then I never ended up going to school until after, and then, I don't know, it was just something that I got into, and then I got hooked on it and never left. I mean, when you're younger and you're in that setting, like, it's good. Like, it's fun, but as you get older, it just becomes draining. You want to do something else. So that's how I picked up writing and I make YouTube videos and stuff talking about my experience.
So you met this guy and you fell in love and he whisked you away to Florida.
Yes.
You didn't see any signs of abusive behavior or anything?
Not right away. Not until like maybe 4 months later, like a month after I moved in is when it started. Psychological abuse, emotional abuse. There was instances of physical abuse, but he would like stop himself and like go into these rages and put holes in the wall and do things like that. So it was just a very toxic relationship, and it brought the worst out of me. It turned me into someone else.
I feel so bad for you. Were you able to get help?
I've kind of like worked my way through it. I'm still dealing with it right now. It's more of like an online social media battle. I had to get rid of all my social media. I'm down to one outlet.
You feel like you attract people that are not good for you.
Yeah. I don't have the best dating history.
And have you been able to work through that somehow?
Yeah, by writing and by making these videos and just like journaling.
Are there people to help you and support you?
Yeah, my family. My mom.
Okay, so that's good.
Usually, like in cases like this, the person that doesn't need the help is the one that goes and gets the help. And then the person that should be getting the help doesn't. So I've kind of just worked it out myself. That's what I'm making the videos for. That's what I wrote the book for, to help people that are in this experience, because people don't understand that they're going through this experience until after it's happened. Then it kind of comes full circle.
Yeah, or a lot of times people think it's going to get better. It's going to get better.
Yeah. And it really doesn't help when they're doing it through other people. So it's like we went through the whole restraining order thing. We had that whole process go on, but then he started through other people. So he had other people harassing me for him. So it's very hard when people close to you are abusing you for that person.
Oof, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, are you getting any traction on your videos?
Yeah, My YouTube account, I get views on them. I have over 800 subscribers right now. So people are watching.
Okay, so
I hope I'm helping people. As long as it's one or two people, if my story helps that, I'm happy with that.
Good enough. Good for you. I hope you can keep going with this.
Yeah, me too.
All right, it is break time here on the Page Publishing Book Club. We're coming right back, and so should you.
Have you written a book and want to get it published? Then now's the time to call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099 and do it immediately. You see, they're looking for authors of all types of books. And unlike most publishers, Page Publishing will take the time to review most of the books submitted to them. And they'll even give you their feedback. And if they like what they read, Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, the Apple iTunes Store, and other outlets. They'll handle everything: copyright protection, printing, cover art, publicity, and editing. So if you've written a novel, a children's book, a cookbook, inspirational work, a book of poetry, or biography, and want to get it published, then you need to call Page Publishing and do it immediately. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. Your road to fame and fortune could very well start with this simple phone call. For your free author submission kit, call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099.
We're back back on the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Brittany Lamp is the director of the Memory Care Unit at Arbor Terrace of Athens, Georgia. When her kids go to bed at night, she steals about 2 hours to write mainly poetry, but then a story came into her head, and for years she couldn't shake it. Now she's published The Fall of the Black Sun.
So the story is really about a girl. She was born into a world that she unknowingly was the center of. So she travels through time as a wanderer. It's basically reincarnation. But the story is more about her pairing of her soul to the special angel, the only archangel of heaven, Michael. It's about her fight to change their destiny, to change prophecies written around the Bible. So accepting fate, but also trying to melt the world to what you think it should be.
So they go on a journey together? What happens?
They meet in purgatory. They both are there for reasons of love, and they will fight against a lot of her past lives. They all come to the surface here in this one place in purgatory, and they will fight epic monsters and circumstance and battles with Greek gods and dragons and things such as that to bring back the light, because in purgatory the Dark King rules. So together they have to bring back enough faith to build an army and conquer the darkness that reigns. It's the beginning of their story. I'm proofreading the second book at the moment. I think that the lesson is, especially for my main character Branda, is we're all created in a certain niche, and we all have great things we can do, and sometimes we need the balance to make us see that. For every darkness there's a light, and I think that's the main story of this.
Do you feel like the story's writing itself?
Yes, I typically do. I think that my characters have a life in my own mind, and they tell me what they are and the choices they would make. So some of the demons that haunt her haunt me and want her story to be told. And I find myself too, especially in my second book, I've tried to push things out into what I wanted the story to be, and be completely stumped for months with writer's block until I realized, well, that's not the path she would take, and have to go back and erase and start back over on that chapter because it wasn't her.
Wow. And what's the ultimate that you see happening with this?
I would love to be an author. That's been my dream since I was probably 7 years old. I always knew I wanted to write. Literature, it expands everything. I think that when you limit yourself and you can only live inside your life, but in books you can live in many. And so I have spent my life just learning about how other people live through the books I read. So I would love to be an author as my main job eventually.
Join the club, Brittany. Thank you so much. Dorcas Shaw used to write stories for her kids when they were little, and later, as a social worker in a Milwaukee school, she noticed preschoolers are very hyper, very busy, and very much in need of learning their ABCs, so she made up a story to help them. It's entitled Lollipop Lulu.
She's in her little dancing outfit, tutu, and she's sucking her little lollipop. And she just manages somehow to get herself in little trouble. She wants to fly with her little costume on. She just wants to do, as the kids would say, she just wants to do the most. And what happens is that she ends up falling and hurting herself. And when she falls and hurts herself, then the little alphabet behind that's been watching her all along, then they notice that she's crying, and they're like, oh, what's going on with this little girl? But they don't know the inside story. The inside story is that she's really running away from ABCs. Mama's sitting at home waiting for her to sit on her lap so she can just tell her ABCs or recite the ABCs with her. But that part's not known until the very, very end. And so the ABCs watching behind the trees and things, they're so curious as to what is this little girl doing. And so they watch her, and then she goes and she does things. She tries to fly, and she accidentally flies over a grill. Someone's in the backyard, and then she lands right on the grill, but her cape lands on it instead, and then it starts to burn. She's upset. She needs to put the fire out. And so, but she jumps into a little pan of water, and then she puts it out. But then when she's in the pan of water, then it starts sliding down the hill. She lands in something that's really, really sticky, and then she has to take a shower. Then she suddenly notices, oh my, I'm being watched. The ABCs are watching her. And so she sees that they seem to be very, very pleasant. And they have little smiles on their faces. So she engages in conversations with them. And so they start more or less explaining to her what they are about. Their ABC and DEF. And
so then they become her friends.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of funny because when I first wrote the book and then I sent it to Page Publishing Company, it was with 2 other stories. And so Page selected this one. I also requested that Page would, do some advertising for me. And I serve out with Milwaukee Public Schools. And I'm going to adopt a classroom, a K-3. And then I'm going to have the teacher of the classroom purchase a certain amount of books according to how many students are in the classrooms. And then I'm going to observe the teacher read the book to the students and observe their reactions. And if the students react in a positive way, then they're going to get a book. I'm going to give the books to students and parents. This is the first book, and that's what I want to do. I want it to be more of a charitable thing than anything. I want to gift this book to students because it's more important to me that they learn their ABCs than anything. And it's more important to me that it's an enjoyable story as they learn.
Very nice, Darcus. Thank you. J.A. Commodore started to read a lot when he retired from medical sales in Michigan, and now he started writing with a vengeance. The name of his book, Rational Innocence.
Well, the story starts out with what is an accidental death of a good friend of the main character, John Castano. And when Mr. Castano checks out the scene of the accident, he decides that this probably was not an accident, but in fact something more sinister. So he starts digging into it, and that's how the story continues. Then he hires a private investigator to continue the work because, he's a lawyer, not into police work or detective work. So he hires this detective, Mr. Durante, to continue the investigation. And he does find some rather startling information before he is brutally murdered.
Woo! Now, are you inspired by certain authors or TV shows or what?
No, not really. I read just about everybody. I do like fiction, although I do read some historical novels.
All right, but you were just convinced that you could write as well as anyone else out there, so this is it.
Right.
It reminds me like of an Agatha Christie novel or a...
Well, it has some twists and turns in it and some unexpected events, so it keeps you going. I have the manuscript of the second book, which is a little bit of a parallel to the first book. And yes, the same character is only under different circumstances. That manuscript is completed. I have it in my own personal editing process right now before I submit it to the publisher. In fact, I'm already into my third book. And that is something that has some of the same characters, but not the same sort of plot. And I've had some publicity locally in the newspapers on the book. They heard about the fact that I was 77 and I published my first book, so they wrote a story on it, and it showed up in 2 of the local newspapers here.
Excellent. That is great free publicity, J.A. Commodore. Keep it up. Marguerite Cardona has been writing for 30 years and believes the Spirit of God led her to research the Bible and write her book, The Story of the Anointing.
I got saved in 1974, and I got saved as a Baptist. And we took to the Word like a duck takes to water, and I just loved it. This is the Spirit of God teaching me. The Lord chose me because He says I'm simple-minded. And I think it's the funniest thing in the world, the thing that I thought was a weakness, the Lord used for strength. You know what I'm saying? People ask questions about, well, if Adam and Eve had these kids and Cain killed Abel, and when Cain wandered the earth, who did he marry? Because of evolution and stuff like that. But this tells a story about what happened. The daughters of Eve married the sons of Cain. It tells the whole story from before the fall, before everything happened, to past the crucifixion. In a few pages, you'll understand everything, and then the Bible will pop. Be more excited. Even people that don't agree will go and look at the Bible and try to prove me wrong. It'll make you more excited about the Word, more excited about God. People know that God is the hero. You'll sell everything you have to have a relationship with Him once you read this book. This is the intent. You'll learn that evolution is crazy. The Bible is true. It's not contradictory. Even if you think it is, it's not. You just don't understand. Lucifer, who he was in heaven, how darkness got into his heart. You'll understand that. It'll make sense to you. What happened? You'll know everything that was revealed to me, and it'll make sense. You'll understand about his plan, why they're angry, why the world is so bad now, and it's not God's fault. It's because of disobedience. You'll understand the reason that we have to be good. You'll understand that God is the one that has everything positive. Everything positive is God. Everything that's negative came out of him. God came out of Lucifer. Everything that's positive and good came from God. The darkness was formed in Lucifer's heart. And all these things that you see in this world that are going wrong, there is an intent, there is a plan, there is an outcome. And you'll understand all of this, and it'll make sense.
All right, Marguerite, thank you so much. And thank you, devoted listener, for tuning in. If you missed anything or need to catch up on previous episodes of the Page Publishing Book Club, you know what to do. Go to 710WOR.com and download the podcast. We have officially entered the holiday season. Woohoo! And I hope yours doesn't get too crazy. If you need some books, I know where you can buy some, or better yet, write one. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini.